part of our Keep Activity Plan, we've commissioned 3 story makers, one for an early years story, one for a young people's story, and one for an adult story. And our 3 writers have worked with us over a 6-month residency period to create new stories. So the story makers spent a couple of months doing research, looking into the collections, looking into the stories of medieval Norwich. They then spent a couple of months writing, creating their new stories, and also holding workshops with the audiences who are the targets for their stories. So they could feed in, so those audiences had a role to play in the stories that were being made. And then in the last 2 months, they've polished and edited their stories down. And the event that we're celebrating today is the culmination of those stories.
So my residency was with children and families, so that's like babies in arms from 0 all the way up to toddlers and up to 5 years old. So we've been making a story together, it's called I See a Family, and it's all about families in medieval times. And those families were in Norwich making lots of crafts and gifts in Norwich, and I've asked modern day families to think about pretending to be those families. And then I'm using their play and their exploration of materials to inform what I reckon the medieval families might have done. So we had 2 workshops happening in August, one for 0 to 2-year-olds and then one for 2 to 5-year-olds. And they came with their families and we did lots of singing and dancing and we made things and we told stories to each other. And through those workshops, the story was sort of born. We had lots of giggles, lots of running around, jumping, throwing fluff in the air. It was really exciting chaos.
I came into the project with this idea that animals were going to be a really interesting way of looking at stories about medieval Norwich. So I started looking at bestiaries, like these medieval books of beasts. And I did lots of wandering around the city and I've been looking at lots of buildings that I've walked past like every day. And I started to find that loads of buildings in Norwich have these kind of animal connections, so places like Dragon Hall or Cow Tower. And I really liked the idea of using the bestiary as a kind of framework for some poems. So I've written lots of 16 poems about Norwich, all of them featuring animals and all of them forming a kind of trail around the city that you'll be able to walk, and you'll be able to download a map that will link to recordings of the poems. And alongside the poems, I've worked with some young people to produce images. So we've had printmaking workshops and an art club, and we also did some writing workshops. So I took some early drafts to a group of young people and asked what I needed to do to make the poems better. And we had some conversations about medieval animals and which animals might help us tell stories. It was really, really lovely to kind of introduce these sort of half-formed poems to some young people and have them be like, I love this bit is great. But also they were really constructive. I had a blast, and I hope that they did too.
I was given the group of adults. I was drawn to the theme of medieval healthcare. So I did 2 workshops as part of the whole kind of project. The first one was with some NHS professionals, and we did poetry and kind of pulling out poems from found materials, and that was a really interesting workshop. And I just wanted to create a little space where people could explore how their feelings about their role have changed in the last year, whether that's in a positive way or, you know, the other things that have been quite difficult. And yeah, the workshop drew out quite a lot of quite intense feelings. And the short play was supposed to kind of pull together the experiences of medieval nurses, about which we know not very much. But Professor Carol Rawcliffe knows what there is to know, and she was very helpful. So the short play is set at Lazar House, which is a building that still stands on Sprowston Road, and it was a hospital and a leprosarium, so a centre for the care of lepers. Nowadays it's home to the Assist Trust, which is a charity that works with adults with learning disabilities, and we went into the workshop with them as well. That workshop was kind of about caring. We did lots of like physical comedy and improv, which was very fun, and they were also very helpful with letting me kind of come into their space and have a look at the building and see what it might have been like all those years ago.
It would be really great if it helped people to explore and enjoy our medieval past, and I hope that the legacy of this will be to encourage more storytelling and story making by everybody in the city, and to celebrate our medieval past but also Norwich today.